It's a medium, not a genre. It's not part-time, it's a lifetime. 'Cause if you're brilliant, you can feel it. The assurance, the freedom from torment. Hey guys, Baron is back, and throughout the years of different media, particularly in this instance animation, there have been a multitude of tropes that are still being used to this day despite being like over 20 years old, and I think this is a pretty interesting time to reflect on that, and I feel like a good way of handling that would be to make a video on it by going over my top 3, maybe not top 3, but just 3 that come to mind, tropes that happen to, despite being around for a super long time, still get me interested. I'd still watch the episode of media if it has the stuff in it. I have no issue with it at all. So, you'll probably be wondering why I release this video during the Christmas time, and that's because Christmas is one of the biggest tropes that is going through many different media and stuff, and that is totally clever if you ask me, and not just an excuse that I was supposed to have this video in November, but now it's in December. So anyway, with that being said, let's get this started. So, trope number 1 that I'm going to be talking about would be the off-model trope, specifically the category of deranged animation, according to the official TV Tropes website, considering that there are quite a few different versions of the off-model trope, but this is the one that I felt like was most intact to what I wanted to talk about. So, off-model animation in general has been kind of something that's been looked down upon for looking unprofessional and stuff. There were those occasional moments in very professional looking film or show where the designs would look kind of off in some shots, maybe from a rough day from the animators or something else. But in this instance, it's kind of done on purpose in the deranged animation where the designs look weirder for goofy effect. The animation looks slightly more jarring for goofy effect. And it's kind of an easy way to get someone to laugh that way. Just imagine it's just all normal for 1 second, everything's just going along well, the story is progressing, and then randomly everyone just gets super at least noticeably off and move around a bit to establish a little levity in a situation or something. The point is that this one is appealing to me because I like seeing shows art style change officially. Of course there's always fan art and stuff which makes different interpretations on designs and stuff, but it's interesting seeing it in the media, even if it's slightly off, but if it's official like that, it's just interesting. It reminds me of how much I really liked when 3D shows or movies, when there would be posters and stuff which would show the characters in 2D and the world which they inhabit in that style, and I find that just a really interesting way of seeing these characters. It does add more life to it, I believe. I do know that there are times to use it and times to not. There are definitely more serious series which definitely don't need all this stuff in order to gravitate to me. I feel like it would be kind of off in some of those other instances, but stuff like K-pop Demon Hunter, which I might talk about more later, in a later video, who knows, really help emphasize just how much just changing things up, changing the looks of characters for a quick gag and stuff really adds a bunch of life to it. Also, Steven Universe changes up the proportions of the characters a bunch, and those are some. There are even there are thousands and thousands of other examples I can think of. okay, maybe dozens of dozens, but the point is, this is this is what the tropes that I chose to talk about, and I feel like I did a good job at making this not look like a really weird and concerning choice for the list. So with that being said, let's move on to number 2. So number 2 in the trope discussing adventure of ours, we have sidekicks. Not big sidekicks or small sidekicks or faraway sidekicks, close sidekicks, just sidekicks in general. I just happen to something about having this little partner around with the main character just seems to add more personality to their adventure, I believe. I mean, this is a trope that's been it's pretty much a staple in storytelling for a lot of people, but there are tons of instances where this isn't the case. A movie I saw a video, which I might be talking about in a future video, The Amateur, doesn't have the psychic thing. It's not animation related, but this trope goes into outside of animation, so just I'll bring it up. So I am also a really big fan of this is a little, I guess, honorable mention or part of the number 2 spot. I like it when the villain of a series happens to have their own sidekick too, and I feel like that adds character thing. I just feel like it's an easy way to get more insight on the main character's personality, as it's a little harder to do that if they don't have someone to casually work off, and this is the easiest way to do that. Of course, it isn't impossible to do other ways, with interactions with other people, which they discover on their journey, little notes they find around, observations about the land, the world. But in this case, psychics is pretty easy way to do it. And I just find that you can really come up with some pretty cool and unique dynamics for a psychic character. You can make them smaller but really reassuring, bigger but kind of timid. You can also make them a little deceptive and maybe not the best as of friends with the main character, which can also lead to some other interesting adventures to go ahead on the little journey of theirs. And I guess of course there are times where psychics can be a little overbearing, the main character's adventure is seen as too lame to some people, so they want to add in a little guy who can really help them as a pep to the step, but can also make things a little annoying for the viewer, and they end up not wishing that character was around anymore, suffice to say. So, I feel like that's a really good example of what I look for in storytelling. Just a little easy way to get the main character's momentum flowing, and this is how I chose to do it. So now we're gonna move on to number 1. So the reason I said number 1 instead of number 3, outside of it being an accidental choice, is because I view this next trope as the first one which I think of when it comes to tropes which, while being around a long time, still have merit, and that would be the fairy tale parody trope, also known as the fractured fairy tale to some people. So one thing which interests me, which stands out from all the other media-based parody stuff which cartoons occasionally do, is I guess the whimsical, magical vibe with them, which can give this type of parody a lot more legs and a lot more appeal than other ones. In general, I'm just not the biggest fan of the parody tropes, the ones for movies, parodying the books, parodying the other shows. I just haven't really found them too interesting, because especially if you know what's happening, it just feel the ways you change them up just kind of a lot harder to make appealing compared to the fairy tale ones, which already have like appeal pretty much built in their genes. You have to like making it magical is like one of the main like phases of this type of variation of a parody. And I feel like this one has some really good examples like back it up. There's Disenchantment, which had that really cool Hansel and Gretel like little switch up, which is pretty fun to explore. Also, the Looney Tunes have had a ton of ways of experimenting with this type of world. And in general, like, there's just a bunch of different stories, and like, there's definitely more popular ones than others. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there are like thousands and thousands of secret, like, little fairy tales that have yet to be explored by the masses. And maybe that day will come up in the future. But we're not focusing on this. It was just like I just find like all these different parodies, even if a lot of like the way how these like pretty familiar stories have been adapted. I just find it I just like I say, it just doesn't really get old to me. Maybe it's because of the youthful side of myself, which doesn't seem to filter it by how much I grow, or something else. I happen to still really like this trope despite going on for a very, 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 very long time. So, yeah, this is my number 3, I guess you can also say number 1 spot for the tropiest trope that I just can't seem to get enough of. So this was my video on tropes. I must say it was pretty fun getting to talk about this with y'all. If you happen to have some tropes which you find stand the test of time, you can talk about them in the comments. If you liked what you saw in general in this video, I'd recommend liking and subscribing, and you'll probably be able to see more of my cool content which is pretty similar to this one if you enjoyed it. And with that being said, you're going to be seeing this artist later. It's been a long time, breaking muscle down, building muscle up, repeating it. It's been a long time, breaking muscle down, building muscle up, repeating it.